can you guys hear me? Just type in the chat or something if you can hear me. Um, and then can you invite to speak real quick so I can bring you up to the speaker section? Let me invite you. How do I invite? Could you request to speak real quick? Um, so I can bring you up as one of the guests. I don't know how to actually invite you. How do I do this? How do I invite? Oh, there we go. Okay. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, you hear us?
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay. Really quickly, I'm just gonna go over like the basic way that this call is gonna go. We're just gonna introduce ourselves, and then anyone who's in the audience can request to speak. I suggest that you do because then you can ask basically as many questions as you want back to back, and then we'll bring up whoever else wants to ask. And if you are a little shy and you don't want to request to speak, then you can ask your questions in the VC questions as the call is happening, and we'll get to those afterward. And then, yeah, that's basically it. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sarah, I'm a mechanical engineer. I just graduated in 2024 with my bachelor's and master's in mechanical engineering, and I work at Blue Origin as a fuel cell mechanical design engineer. And Alec, do you want to introduce yourself?
No, not yet.
Okay. It's just,
Oh,
yeah. Sorry, he just got home.
I am Alec. Have they seen my resume?
No.
I'm Alec. I am a computer engineer 1 year out of college. I finished with my bachelor's degree and my master's of science. I did a 5 year program, which involved a year, basically 8 semesters of classes, and then 1 semester of internships, mandatory internships. I
Awesome.
was a computer engineer. I don't know if I included that, which is like a mix of mostly firmware with a little bit of software. And I'm currently a embedded software engineer at AWS.
It's awesome that both of you work at really cool companies. I'll introduce myself really quick. I'm a mechanical engineering student at the University of Texas San Antonio, and I guess I'm the host for this event. If anyone has any questions, please like request to speak. That way I can bring you up. Otherwise, we'll just get into the questions that were pre-asked because a lot of people just don't want to speak. I'll give everyone like 30 seconds to request to speak if you want to. And you don't have to show your camera or anything. It's literally just your microphone. All right, I don't think anyone's going to request to speak, so I'll go to the questions that were asked beforehand. But if you guys do want to in the audience at any point, just literally just request to speak and we'll invite you up. I'll read from the chat. The first one is for as someone doing mechanical engineering, what are some things that projects hold on, this is written a little weird. As someone doing mechanical engineering, what are some projects and softwares that I should work on and improve in? And are there any kits or anything like that that I should know and work on before I go into the industry?
as far as like getting into mechanical engineering, and I think that the best way to I guess start this conversation, and maybe it'll help prompt some more questions, is I'm just going to kind of take you through my college experience. So I went to RIT, Rochester Institute of Technology, and they include internships and things in their program. And if I can share my screen, is that allowed? I'm okay with
Um,
that.
if you're able to, yeah, I actually don't know.
Okay. I'm just gonna share a screen. I just have it up real fast so like people can like reference our experience and they can ask
Hmm.
questions about it. So yeah, so knowing that my college kind of required tips, it's not like we're placed anywhere. We have to apply and we have to like find them all. I knew I needed like some good experience, some good projects under my belt to get some good internships. So, and I didn't want to pay much money for that. So I started with CAD software because it's cheap and it's usually free. And I know this will lead into some of the other questions that were asked. Um, it's really easy to just go onto like Onshape, which is a free online CAD service. You can also get some free student licenses with Fusion 360 or SolidWorks, and those are really good entry-level CAD softwares. And once you learn one CAD model or the CAD software, it's really easy to switch over to any other ones that you might learn. So I started with that, and I started just with 3D printing things I liked and looking at fun designs of 3D printed things and doing it that way. Then, if you want to learn things like Arduino or other things with kits and that sort of thing, there's a lot of things you can Google. Something like the useless machine, which is a funny one where it's like a box and you have a switch and you can make it interact and do things, and that's kind of fun. But there's a bunch of them. I didn't really do any other kits besides that. A lot of my friends did things like PRS racing, which is souping up like little kids' cars to go 20 miles an hour, and then they race them. And you can rebuild frames and learn to weld with frames and things like that, and that's really cool. So there's a lot of good opportunities. It's kind of based on what's on your budget, who's around you, and how much time you want to put into your
So
projects.
are these high school students?
These are like high school and college kids.
Yeah,
Yeah,
mainly
so I mean,
college students.
mainly college students?
Hmm.
Yeah.
You did a lot of projects though.
Yeah, I mean, in high school, I did a lot of projects. If you're like going into it from nothing, I started with like Tinkercad, which is like CAD, but it's for babies. But it's good because you can just, it's very easy to play around because like going into an actual CAD software, it's pretty intimidating. There's a lot
It
of
can be very
buttons.
intimidating.
So it's kind of best to go to learn CAD, like really good CAD in a class or using like online YouTube tutorials, but using tutorials, you have to really be self-motivated to do stuff like that. So,
Hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, you can just go to like Tinkercad and then try to make stuff in that you would see on like a Thingiverse that you would 3D print.
Yeah, like you can make a lot of gears and stuff. So actually, Alec made a really cool clock, and it was all he designed and 3D printed all the gears, and he coded it all up, and it was really really cool. It was a pretty cool project.
Yeah, I
Yeah, I
agree.
did.
As someone who's kind of in the same boat myself, like currently a student, I've basically just been doing all that you guys are saying, and it's definitely paid off in terms of helping me land interviews and stuff. So I definitely suggest anyone else who might not really know what they're doing to just try to get into that stuff as much as you can. Someone asked a question in the chat. They said, I just installed AutoCAD and I had previously learned SolidWorks in a class, but I cannot seem to figure out how to use AutoCAD. Any tips on learning how to use it?
Watch YouTube videos. Following YouTube tutorials is pretty good. It is a learning curve. Every single CAD software, they're gonna have different buttons located in different areas that do the same things, but they all have to be special in their own secret way.
From what I've
So
seen, people are always partial to the first CAD software they learn. The first CAD software I learned was Inventor, so I've only ever used
it's
Inventor,
true.
and SolidWorks sucks to me. Same with Creo. So it's just it takes getting used to
It's a
learning a
learning curve.
second one. It's always a pain in the ass.
Yeah, it's like your first love. This one's a more
Yeah.
computer engineering question. It says, being a computer engineering student, what sort of projects and campus interactions help you get where you are, and what would you focus on more throughout your last 2 years of college?
The last 2 years.
Yeah, I guess
Um,
I guess they said which one should I focus on more? So I guess between projects and campus interactions, but they're kind of the same thing, so I'll just let you answer that.
it definitely depends on what kind of opportunities you have at your campus. Like our school had a lot of engineering based academic or engineering based extracurriculars. So we had like a rocket launch club. There was formula. There was a bunch of other like car based or vehicle based clubs that you could join, and you could get plenty of hands on work with that. But if you don't have something like that, I mean, it also depends on what you're looking to go into. They say
Hmm.
like 80% of computer engineers just go into software engineering because that's just where the market is. But if you really want to stick with like hardware development and firmware development, you should try to focus on like your classes that like I didn't go down the FPGA route, but if you really want to go down that route, you should try to do projects in your classes and spend a lot of time on those. But if you want to do, obviously, if you want to get into the software route, you should just do personal projects or do some projects, whatever you can to do, get the experience that you want based on your career. And you should explore all the different kinds of computer engineering just so you know what you want to do. Because if you end up spending all of your time in firmware engineering and FPGA development, but then end up getting a job in software engineering, and you like software engineering, you should try to make sure you have the experience to hit the ground running when you end up getting a job.
Like your first internship was FPGAs, right?
Yes, because that's who hired me, and that's what I thought I liked. But after doing FPGAs for a while, after like a couple years, I discovered that I didn't really like FPGAs. So I kind of shifted my classes and my projects towards software engineering more. And they were still low level software engineering. I was still writing C code, but it definitely enabled me to get a job in an industry that I would prefer, which was writing embedded software at Amazon.
That's awesome. And then the next question, there's two, but I'm going to kind of combine them into one. The first one is, what books would you recommend a computer engineer who's interested in learning and getting comfortable with AWS, along with any other books you feel were relevant and helpful to get to your current career? And then the question after that was basically the same thing, but besides books, any just online resources, courses, lectures, etc.
Mm.
So I'll interject and say that it's kind of hard sometimes to just target a single company, especially for your first full-time job. Um, and I feel like we were pretty lucky with ours and how we fall into those. Um, I think a lot of it is luck of the draw. And so it's really great to try and target a company, and especially if you could try and get an internship there, it makes it a lot easier. But definitely make sure you cast a wide net, and I'll just leave that at that.
I mean, if you are looking at AWS, you're looking at cloud computing, which there is plenty of jobs and companies that you could target. So you don't necessarily target AWS, target cloud computing because you could work for Microsoft, you could work for or Oracle, etc., and that's fine. In terms of like resources, I did not read basically a single textbook. I kind of was just like I would go to my classes. My campus was structured where everything was hands on. We didn't really have to necessarily study from a textbook very often. We did have a textbook, but I could absorb all the information by taking notes in class and doing all the homework and just talking. So then that's what I preferred. If that's not your preferred style, then that is totally fine. Everybody has some people much prefer reading from a textbook than going to class, and that's totally fine. Um, there were some it depends also, like, I guess, yeah, it depends on what kind of field you're looking to get into. There were plenty of there were plenty of textbooks, like free textbooks that I found online that were recommended by my professor for FPGA computing and stuff like that. But in terms of if you're getting into networking and cloud computing, I'm in networking specifically. So, and that's because that's where most embedded engineers go at AWS and cloud computing is that you end up working in networking. Not necessarily, but you should definitely understand networks. You should definitely understand packet flow and TCP protocols and stuff like that. And that is stuff you can find plenty of resources on. You should also understand VPCs and virtual private clouds. And there are plenty of resources online. All you got to do, I mean, you could ask ChatGPT. There are, I'm sure, free textbooks you can get PDFs of. I don't have anything specific in mind, so I can't provide a specific resource. But there are people that they just want to work at Amazon. So what they do is they just take this like 6-month course where they learn how to be a VPC. You basically work with customers to help them understand what kind of VPC structure they should have. And so there's plenty of resources for those kind of things. And then using that, if you establish your understanding of that, you can go into whatever niche you want to, whether that's just general services or if it's networking and embedded engineer. You could also just ask ChatGPT what kind of textbooks or what resources should I be looking for? Because I'm sure it'll provide much more concrete sources than I could provide.
Yeah, and also just to add on to that, another thing besides ChatGPT is this thing called Perplexity. That's also really good for that stuff because ChatGPT sometimes will send you links that don't work, but Perplexity just scrapes the web, so all of the links are like actual available stuff. It won't hallucinate anything. The next question is, and this one's for mechanical engineering, but I'll let you both answer it for your respective majors. It's how do I make the most out of my first year of engineering and start off strong when going into mechanical engineering? And I'm guessing their question is more like, how do they gain as much experience as possible and give themselves the best odds of landing an internship after their freshman year?
Yeah. I guess the first step is to make sure that you feel solid in your classes and make sure you find a good way to study and give yourself a good solid schedule to stay on top of your homework and everything else. Don't or try to like connect with your professors if you can and make sure to ask for help. Another good thing is to try and surround yourself with other engineers that are like-minded. How Alec and I originally met, we met on day one of college, and we met in a group called Engineering House at RIT. And it's a group of engineers that it's like a mentoring program, and they build projects throughout the years, and the second years mentor the first years, and all this sorts of really great stuff. And I think that helped to really influence our careers and our trajectories, just because we were surrounded by people that are really interested in engineering and they do super, super cool projects. And so if you can find a group like that or a makerspace and like hang out in a makerspace and just see what everyone's building and kind of learn from your peers, that's an amazing, amazing thing to do. I had no experience on engineering before I went to college. Didn't really know what it was when I entered college. And so getting to learn from the upperclassmen was definitely invaluable.
I will say it's probably pretty hard to get an internship after your first year.
Yeah.
Basically no student at our college was expected to get an internship after their first year. They were expected to get it after their second year. Some people definitely have gotten internships after their first year, but these are people that had a lot of experience in science and research and engineering before college. And that's kind of like their thing. And some people can do that and most people cannot. So
It's like the Nepo baby of engineering.
yeah, it's like great. These are awesome people. I know them. They're awesome people, but they are like they're leagues above. And if you're that kind of person, that's awesome. I think a lot of these people are getting connections through their professors, so they talk to their professors a lot. They're really knowledgeable in their fields, and so you kind of just have to really know your stuff from a different perspective.
You really have to hit the ground running. And don't put that kind of stress on yourself. Have a summer free. Like, you're going to be working for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
I'm a believer that, like, after your first summer of college, like, that should be a relaxed time.
You can also you can spend that time working on personal projects too. Like, don't feel like if you don't get an internship, you're going to waste the summer, because you will have so much ability to apply the knowledge from your first year. and develop some sort of small projects that you can actually then put on your resume or put on a personal website.
Yeah, neither of internship our first year. It was after our second years.
Right.
And one thing I want to add on to that is I also started college with no experience whatsoever before, and I was able to get an internship after my first year. And my biggest advice in how I did it was basically just like targeting the kind of smaller local companies that are around you
Hmm.
that don't even post internships. Like you wouldn't even be able to find them on LinkedIn or anything, but they still have a little position for someone to go. Maybe it's even unpaid if you're willing to do that. Although I don't always suggest that. But just targeting the smaller companies and reaching out to their engineers on LinkedIn and seeing if there's any opportunities there, even if it's just kind of part-time, like literally even 6 hours a week, you just come in and get to ask them questions and see what they're doing. It can be a really cool experience. Let's see what the next question is.
Oh yeah.
What was your,
Obviously
oh, sorry.
everybody here is pretty like inclined to work towards something. Like you're taking the time to be at this meeting. Like make sure you apply that also to college life. Like
Yeah,
put yourself out there, try new things, join clubs, try and get included and things like that. That's all. All right, next question.
this one's a little similar to some of the past questions. What was your path to becoming a mechanical design engineer specifically, and how did you gain experience in it outside of just regular classes? I imagine you did a lot of projects and outside CAD stuff for Blue Origin to be a good hire. Basically, just how did you go about mechanical design engineering specifically?
Target actually, design engineering, that specifically. It's a pretty rough time out there. I applied to lots and lots and lots of places. I decided through my path of my internships that I was really interested in space, so I was really hopeful to end up in a space role and sector, but it definitely wasn't like the end all be all. So it's really and mechanical engineering, you can apply yourself honestly anywhere, right? You fit into so many different sectors. There's so many roles out there. I could have just as easily become a test engineer or gone to GNC or whatever. Like there's so many things out there. Um, it I initially actually had a job lined up for the contractor of Blue Origin, and it was also up here in Seattle, and that was a test engineer role. And I was set to do that, and then Blue Origin called me up, and they were like, "Hey, we have this design engineer role. We're interested in you. Do you want to apply?" And I was like, "Heck yeah!" So then I ended up switching roles. Um, so that's kind of the thing. And then I guess for design, it started at Collins Aerospace, I will say, because that was a design internship. And again, that kind of just fell into my lap. I just happened to talk to the right HR person at the career fair that they were like, hey, we have this role. You're a mechie. Do you want to do it? And I was like, sure. Um, it's definitely a matter of look at it as new things should be interesting to you. And if it's interesting to you, you should do it and take the challenge, and you might like it. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's hard to like target roles.
Some of it
Yeah.
is luck. Yeah, I mean, if you can get a design engineer internship, you have a much higher chance of getting a like full-time job, which is great. But some of that is luck,
Yeah.
and also you have to have an experience with design. You
Something
should
applicable.
you
Something.
should know you should like specialize as best you can in CAD and design in college. If you can join a club where you are designing things, that certainly helps.
If you can learn GD&T, like in my SpaceX role, you can see I started to learn GD&T. I started to learn some finite element analysis. I think that helped set me up and helped make my resume really strong for those kinds of positions. And I think it's unusual for college level students to have any GD&T experience. So I think that was something that caught their eye. Um, so that if you can learn it well, if you can learn how to do drawings, if you have some good solid CAD, you make yourself a really strong candidate for design roles.
And there's a ton of resources on YouTube for learning GD&T and stuff. Someone in the
So
chat, oh, sorry, keep going.
if you have a role that you're like really passionate about getting into, research what those job descriptions are, look at the skill list and make that your to-do list now.
Mhm.
And use that to reference to build your skills tree. Yeah.
Hmm. Someone in the chat had asked, how do you guys deal with the feeling of not being qualified enough for positions you're interested in? And when it comes to career fairs or interviews, how do you get over the feeling and be comfortable and confident to sell yourself? Basically, like imposter syndrome.
Apply. And if you don't know, say that. Don't try to fake your way through it.
You should also have more experienced people review your resume, because then that tells you if you are like if you are good enough or if there is something to improve upon. You should always be looking where you can improve. So you have to ask yourself. You have to ask other people, where can I improve? And you can't be afraid to ask other people where you can improve,
Yeah.
whether that be your professors, senior engineers at internships, or just like higher level students.
I mean, like, I totally don't know everything. Every day at work, I'm like, hey, I don't know this. Can you help? And then they help me because I've only been there a year and I'm just out of college. Like, I'm not expected to know everything. It'd be a lot worse if I pretended to know everything and then it all got messed up later.
You should be honest about what you don't know, because it does. If you end up lying, I mean, if you can lie really well, that's a good thing, and you should like, do it where you can. No, but if you can do it like really well, and you cannot fub yourself later. But if they're gonna catch you like very obviously after you develop this story, then just don't lie.
Yeah, like if it's like a star question where you're trying to like think of a really good story to fit their dumb question and you have to like fib a little bit on a project that you actually did to like fit their story, whatever. But then if it's like, hey, do you know how to like read a piping and instrumentation diagram? And you're like, heck yes, yes I do. And then at work, they give you a piping and instrumentation diagram and then you don't know how to read it and then you make actual decisions based off of that. That's really bad. Like you have to know the line.
Like I have personal projects that I like beef up a lot. I've done them, but I beef them up when I tell them, and that's kind of what they somewhat expect you to do. But you should be able to back that up with real world evidence.
Yeah, but be careful with it.
And
Be careful.
and I mean, if you need to like if you need to go before an interview and practice, you should definitely like practice a pitch alone or with friends just to get experience with talking to other people about your engineering experience. I've certainly done that. I've practiced my pitch to people. I've had people practice their pitch to me, and we give them feedback. And that's certainly helpful in like fighting that
Imposter syndrome.
imposter syndrome and anxiety going to a career fair and stuff like that.
Another thing, like I tend to really clam up during interviews. Like I forget about everything I've ever done in my life. I have a whole Google Doc that is filled with practice star questions that I've Googled and I write out answers to them. Like and I think about what projects are really good for that story that I want to tell because they're looking for that story and they're looking for that whole cohesive here's the situation, here's what I was trying to do, here's the results and make it fit into like whatever when's a conflict you had with a coworker, how'd you fix it, whatever. Really hard to come up with on the spot, so practice, like have that on hand and then reference it if you really want to. Like you can have notes pulled up.
Yeah, come up with a list of like you can Google like the biggest questions of a technical interview and then just like write up some short responses just so you know what you would say in those scenarios.
These are the behavioral ones and then practice for the technical ones. And I think I've sent a bunch of technical practice questions in the Discord somewhere.
So. And I've also taken a public speaking class at my college. That's just good. So I am more experienced talking on the spot about stuff that I haven't necessarily rehearsed. Like wherever you can get practice just talking to people, it should be taken. So you can take steps like that.
Having good interpersonal skills is invaluable in engineering.
Right.
Did you answer all that question?
Yeah, I think that was a good question and a good answer. The next question is, I'm going to kind of reword it. It's basically asking, do you think it's better as a mechanical engineer to learn one CAD software and really only use that one and get good at it? Or do you think it's worth kind of, once you get good enough, to learn a different one and keep doing that so that you know a broader spectrum of software versus only knowing one?
Play as many as you can. Like if you have access and they're free, don't pay for it. But if you have access, oh yeah, just like at least open it up and I've used like the same reference thing that I like to build, and I try to build it in multiple different CAD softwares, if only to like highlight the differences, and then I can learn the differences. And I don't know, it's nice to know what preferences I have, and maybe that might influence what company I join later and whatever. But then, I get to list all my CAD softwares up on that skills list right there, and that's pretty nice.
Yeah, you really don't need to specialize in a single CAD software until you get to a company, until you have a full-time job, and then focus on specializing. Also, like companies won't necessarily expect you to be an expert in one CAD software. It's much more likely that you'll end up at a company that whose software you haven't used before. So you should have experience jumping into a new software.
And it's good to practice learning.
It's like learning a second and third language. Like the second language you learn is much more difficult than the third language. Once you've developed a second language, it's much more easy to do a third and fourth instead of so.
The next question, kind of, sorry if you hear a whole bunch of vacuuming in the background. My roommate's cleaning right now. But the next question is kind of a little similar to the previous one, and it's if you had to target one CAD software, let's say you had access to all of them, which one would you suggest going into?
Love NX. Siemens NX is just, it's so smooth. It's so nice. I don't know. The auto dimensioning is really great for it. That's what I worked with at SpaceX, and it was really nice.
It also kind of depends on what kind of industry you're going in. I
and
know
what the product is.
certain industries have a preferred CAD software. I mean, there's SolidWorks. You could also use like
SolidWorks is
Fusion
used a lot.
Fusion 360. That's a big one used in industry. So
Well, it's not. I wouldn't say Fusion is used often in industry, but it's free and it's used a lot in like a lot of college classes and things. If you really, yeah, it's everybody has their own preference. A lot of people do like SolidWorks. I just like NX. Creo, bane of my existence. I work at Creo all the time at my current job. Sucks. Yeah.
Do you have any knowledge as to like which CAD software are preferred by which industries?
It's gonna change by the season.
Okay,
I know space and aerospace is a lot of CATIA, Creo, and X. For whatever reason, at Collins Aerospace, they were in the middle of transitioning between the three. So literally, at one point, I was working on 3 different projects, and I had all 3 CAD softwares up and
that's
having to switch
crazy.
between the 3. It was nuts, and they all have different keyboard shortcuts. It was a little bit crazy. But yeah, and I know SolidWorks is also thrown in there quite a bit. Those are the top 4, I
Hmm.
would say.
Okay, that was all the questions people asked, so I'm gonna move on to ones that I kind of prepared that I think people would want to know. The first one is for both of you. What misconceptions do you see people often have surrounding your specific career or position?
Yeah. Misconceptions do you have? Again, mechanical is highly applicable everywhere, and it's very hard. I mean, you're in college, you're still learning. It's okay if you don't know what you want to do. When I'm going to use this moment to like go through my college career. I thought I wanted to go into like EVs, and I thought I wanted to do automotive. So I thought it was really awesome that my first co-op was at General Motors. It was a manufacturing job, and it was at an engine plant. I hated it. It really sucked. I realized I didn't want to do manufacturing. I didn't want to do automotive. I thought it was really boring. So I totally pivoted. I didn't really know yet what I wanted to do. Collins Aerospace came up and didn't like the defense part, but I thought aerospace was super cool. I thought it was super challenging, and it had a lot of interesting requirements that I had to design to. Um, and then that kind of led me towards targeting space because that's even cooler. And space. So SpaceX came, and that was great. But that was still kind of a manufacturing role. It was with the satellites, the Starlink satellites. So then I did a bio minor as well, and I've always been interested in biology. I kind of wanted to transition to life support systems, and that would be a great niche or sustainability. So now I'm really fortunate to be at Blue Origin. I work on fuel cells for the lunar lander. And my components that I own, I'm basically what we like to affectionately call a space plumber. I work on some water components, and it's like water treatment components, and it provides water to the fuel cell as well as water to our astronauts, which is kind of awesome. So I get to work with the crew life support systems team all the time. I interface with our manufacturing engineers, our test engineers, all the time. I'm talking to so many different people, analysts, thermal engineers, everybody. I don't need to know everything, and there's so many interesting jobs out there. It just makes me feel excited because I'm only at the start of my career, and kind of the world's your oyster. You can kind of wiggle yourself in. Once you're at a company, you can kind of go wherever you want after that. Um, at least within that company, and then you can get some good experience, then go wherever. Um, I don't know. World's your oyster.
It's hard to say what kind of misconceptions are in my career.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think
Computer is weird.
well, it's kind of just like it's hard. I would say that a big misconception I had was knowing or like going in thinking that I had to know everything. I ended up going into a career in networking, and I took a data networks class, and I hated it. It was the worst class, and I thought I was never going to go into networking. But I ended up, it's the job I ended up getting. I mean, I also got an offer from Boeing for a test engineer, but the Amazon position was better. So I ended up going at that. And they didn't expect me to know anything about networks. They just expected me to have experience with embedded engineering. And so once you have, they just want you to know the more difficult and time consuming intuition than to have all these like the surface level knowledge that you can absorb within the first couple months, which is just like the TCP networking flow. So make sure you have a good concrete foundation of understanding whatever field you're going in, not necessarily the stuff that can be learned within a couple months.
Yeah, you don't have to know everything. That's a really good.
Okay, awesome.
And companies know that. Companies don't expect that from you. They want, and they also want to help you onboard as quickly as possible. So you should be asking as many questions as possible. Sometimes some people are more responsive to questions than other people are. Some people like answering questions, and then some people don't. So you kind of just have to find a person that is willing to answer all of your questions, and then ask as many questions as you possibly can to get yourself moving as quickly as possible, because that's what your team wants, and that's what you should want. You should want to work as to ramp up as quickly as possible, and that's what they want for you as well.
Okay, awesome. And then someone also asked in the chat, for computer engineering, would you recommend to stick and focus on one side, either hardware or software, or be flexible with both, having projects for both on your resume? And also, would you keep one resume or have a separate resume for positions in each of those?
You should definitely have separate resumes for each of those, depending on the career. You might also have to want a third one that is a mix of both. If there is a job that would potentially fit a mix of both hardware and software. If you find yourself enjoying both hardware and software, absolutely focus some time on both. If you hate hardware and like software, or vice versa, of course focus on whatever you want. But it's definitely good to say that I have tried this and I have experience in this, and I'm potentially willing to do it, but I want to focus on this other field, whether that be you've tried hardware and you want to go into software, but you have tried hardware. Companies like when you have done a lot of things, and they like when you have a preferred option as well that fits with them. So try to know what you want to do and then fit into the niche that companies are looking for. Companies want you for what you want to do.
Do you want to talk about machine learning at all?
Machine learning, dude. I spent I guess that's not clear. I did my master's project on machine learning, and that is not hardware engineering. It is not embedded engineering. machine learning is entirely math and computer science, and I thought I wanted to experience. I thought I wanted to go into machine learning, but after spending a couple months really digging into it, the research side of it, I discovered that it's like it requires like I did not have enough experience to actually go into machine learning, um, because it's so math
You
heavy.
need like a PhD in it.
Yeah, and companies don't really hire people for machine learning if they don't have a PhD. So it's like a lot more work. I mean, machine learning is cool, and I want to get into it more, but I certainly don't have the brain for it because it's a whole other ball. But I can say that I've done machine learning, and companies, especially some people that don't know what they're talking about, they might be like, "Whoa, that's cool," and then hire you for that because that's on your resume.
hmm A question that I had for you guys is just so that everyone kind of gets a better idea of not only what you do, but like how it's done, is if you could walk us through a typical day or week in your role and like how that's kind of structured and stuff.
Sure, I will go first. It definitely depends on the team at Amazon. The team structure it depends. That basically determines your workflow. My week is pretty independent. I don't typically interact with other people nearly as much as like Sarah will. I have like I have my tasks because when you're working at a I'm working on like this giant code base that's 11 years old and 12 years old, and it touches like billions of people every day. So it requires, and it's enormous. It's an enormous code base. So I have to spend a lot of time looking into the code, digging into it. It's very grindy. I have to spend a lot of time testing, knowing what's going to happen when I make a change and why this change is important and how we're going to validate that it is effective and it's not going to cause catastrophic failure later. So I spent a lot of time, well, in the beginning, I spent a lot of time asking questions, reading docs, looking at the code, just digging in as best as I can. Nothing really made sense for the first 8 months, but then I actually started to understand what's going on, and now I spend a lot of my time. Every day, I'm spending my time just digging into potentially the same problem, the same three problems. When I get blocked on one problem, I end up just like waiting a little bit. I just get burnt out on one project, so I switch a little bit to this other coding change that I need to make. And then I dig into that for a couple hours. And I might be pushed around by my manager or senior engineers to get back on a specific task, and that's fine. I'll just go back onto that task. But so long as I'm making progress in some capacity on one of my projects, they're pretty satisfied.
What coding language do you use?
It's all C. I write a little bit of Ruby because I became like the Ruby master on my team. Sometimes you'll end up just like becoming the niche that your team needs that nobody really wants to do.
That's true.
Because there's this disgusting other code repository that we use that's terribly set up and nobody really knows how it works or understands it. And I spent my first couple months kind of digging into that because that was like my first task. And now I'm like the expert in it. And that's not intentional. That's not necessarily something that I wanted to do, but it feels good to be the expert in a specific thing and where senior engineers are coming to you for it. So kind of just go with the flow and like
Be open to things.
Be open
to new tasks.
And this was a language that I had never worked in before. So I had to ask. I was doing a lot of ChatGPT to figure out how Ruby is written. So kind of use whatever resources you can to figure out what you need to do. This is especially true for software engineering because Amazon wants you to use like AI to move as quickly as possible. They don't care what you're doing so long as you do it as quickly as possible, and they want you to use AI because it is faster.
Interesting. Yeah, so I'll talk about my job. So again, I'm a mechanical design engineer for Blue Origin. I work on the fuel cell team for the Lunar Lander, and I absolutely love my job. I will talk about it day and night. So I am fortunate enough to own my own components. When I started, we were just starting at the beginning of the design cycle. Like I got to design my parts from the ground up. I able to CAD every single bit and piece of it. I like collected all the requirements and everything else. I conferred with all the structural analysts to design this whole part, and that was in Creo. So I lived day and night in Creo. I was sitting in on a lot of meetings with all of the interfaces I had to look at. So I was looking at typing instrumentation diagrams. I was talking again with my structural analysis guy. I was making drawings and using GD&T. And then once the part was like really good, and I did a presentation on it to showcase and be like, yes, I will hit all of the requirements I need to hit, and it will do its job in this whole system that it needs to do. Then you move on to manufacturing. Then you decide how it's going to be manufactured, and of course, you're thinking about this throughout your build. So, for example, some of my parts are 3D printed. They're metal 3D printed because it's impossible to machine them. And we had to, it was like a whole week of deciding, is this a feasible path to fall down? Because 3D printing takes a lot of time, and there's a lot of post-processing you would need to do. And is it worth it to do that? So those are a lot of questions that you have to ask and answer. Now, and then again, I'm into the machining process. I meet with my machinists all the time. They're like, oh, this thing fell out of spec. Is that okay? Will it still work as needed, or do I need to completely scrap it and start over? And then I deal with those questions. And then in the background, I'm working on test engineering. So once my part is machined and all my COTS parts, all of my parts that I bought that are just off the shelf, those are all in. I can assemble it all. Well, then how do I assemble it? And then how do I test it? So currently, my job every day now is meeting with a bunch of test engineers, and I'm down in the research lab building my test stand and determining how it's going to be tested. And what do we care about on this part? What needs to be tested? Do we care if it gets up to 80 degrees Celsius? Would that affect any of my parts? Would it fall out of spec? Or what if we shake this a bunch? Like, it's going to go on a rocket. If we shock and vibe it, is it going to fall apart? Like all those questions. And then how much do we vibe it to? And then I have to go talk to my structural engineer again to figure out how much I have to vibe it to. And then I have to write a test plan and all these other things. So it's a really cool job in that you follow the life cycle, and every day is a new challenge and something to chip away at. And hopefully, eventually, I'll have a working part by the end. So right now, just for context, in the design cycle, I'm most of the way through procuring all my parts for my first prototype build. So hopefully in the next month or so I'll have some tests running, and that'll be really exciting. And yeah, it's really cool. I get to talk with people every day. I have a lot of meetings, and I get to make some really cool mission critical design choices, which is really rare for a first year engineer.
It's also important to be ambitious in general. If you're willing to pick up tasks
Yes.
early in your career,
Say yes.
say yes, and don't be afraid to ask for help in doing those. People want you to, like, you'll quickly become an important part of the team, which is invaluable if you are willing to just start doing stuff as quickly as possible.
Yeah. I started at the same time as another mechanical design engineer on my team, and it's a pretty small team. It quickly became apparent I'm very open to asking questions during meetings, and this other person is not. And so he doesn't really speak up as much, and so I ask a lot of questions, and I'm not afraid to, like, if someone's like, hey, someone needs to own this water vent, I'm like, heck yeah, I'll take it on, and I'll find time to do it. So now I get to own a water vent that if I mess up, it'll change the trajectory of the vehicle, which is really fun. It's really cool, I think. And it's like a part that's going to be on the outside part of the lander. So now I get to point to a part on the lander and say, I built that. And I think that's awesome. But if you don't say yes, you're never going to get those chances.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. And someone actually requested to speak, so I'm going to bring them up and they'll just ask questions.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So I guess I'll just like introduce myself. I'm Kendall. I'm a sophomore electrical engineering and computer science student outside of Detroit, Michigan. So the day in the life of you guys' jobs sounds pretty cool, but also pretty intense. I'm just curious, like how do you personally manage like a work-life balance? Because even with my computer science classes, there have been days or nights where I dream about bugs in my code and just sometimes I can just be annoyed. So yeah.
I mean, it definitely changes in like when you're in college, I spent a lot of time studying and
He
like doing
did.
work. And I kind of got away with that by, I don't know, they say you have to have like two of three things. You can either sleep, you can have a social life, or you can be good at school, and you can't be all three. You can only be two at a time. So I kind of gave up sleep, but I don't sleep much anyway, so it kind of worked out. Also, I um, spent you kind of it's also about time management. People are going to say this time and time again. Um, I like ideally this will go away in like after college and when you start getting into a career, but depending on the company, you might also have a terrible work-life balance. So it's important. I would say that it's important to not work in the place that you live. I very much like going to work every day because I when I come home I don't think about work, and I think it's very important to have a space where you don't think about work. Because if you work in the place that you live, you're going to be in the habit of thinking about work all the time, which might be a requirement, but it's certainly not healthy and sustainable.
Yeah. Work-life balance is really hard, and I think having worked at SpaceX, I've seen the worst of it, at least from a mechanical engineer side. SpaceX works you to the bone, and they even expect interns to work 10-hour days. And that was really hard. And that was just the grind set. And all I so at my SpaceX internship, I actually lived with 6 other interns in a house for a summer, which is crazy. Um, and they all were super in that mindset. We're like, yes, we have to work at least 10 hours. And so, you kind of fall into it.
Some people like working.
Some people love it.
Some people, and that's fine. You know, some people are workaholics. The American culture is very much a workaholic culture. I don't like to be a workaholic, so
Yeah.
you have to find a company and an industry that enables you to work as much as you want. It might be difficult to find that because you know the industry is a little bit tight right now. But in theory, over time, you should work as much as you want to. I work 8 hours a day, sometimes less, but I'm very efficient in those hours. And then the culture at my work is you come in when you want, you get the work that you need to do done, and then you go home, and then you don't work outside of work hours.
Yeah.
So it depends on the company, it depends on the industry, and if you don't want to work all the time, then don't try to work all the time.
Blue is also really good about work-life balance, and unfortunately it is team dependent, so you kind of won't know until you get there. But I will say, I've never worked as hard as I did in college, so it does get better.
Right.
It will get better, and hopefully you'll enjoy your job. So sometimes it doesn't really feel like work. Yeah, I get stressed at work, and yeah, I have a lot of stuff going on, but it's so much fun, and it's so rewarding at the end of the day.
You know, college also teaches you just like stress management too. If you can get through college, then you're pretty good. You're pretty set for industry because you've kind of gotten that for 4 to 5 years. And I have a friend that you don't want to burn out. Burnout's the worst thing ever. I have a friend that works at SpaceX. He works all the time. He works harder than the rest of his engineers, and his bosses had to tell him, "You work too hard. You're going to burn out. We don't want you to burn out, so you need to work less." So don't work harder than you are capable of because if you burn out, you just will stop working and then nobody wants that. You will become less efficient. Your boss doesn't want you to become less efficient. They want you at your best. And if that means that you work less, then that is ideal.
Thank you. That was really, really insightful.
Okay, good.
Jay, if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
No, that was my only one. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Get cats too, that helps.
Get cats. If you're a cat person, you know, not everybody's a cat person.
Allergy.
Oh, dang.
Also, another thing that I want to add to that is like as someone who is in college and kind of going through the whole experience myself of lots of work and a whole bunch of stuff to balance is definitely just make sure you carve out time every day for the stuff you love, whether that's literally just watching TV or going to the gym or playing sports or just being with your friends. And make sure make sure you're intentional with your time because it can be very easy, especially nowadays, to doom scroll from like 12 to 3 a.m. and then waste your entire night and just be so tired the next day. And so I think just thinking about like what should I be doing right now will help you get the actual work done a lot faster and give you more time to spend with yourself rather than kind of spending the whole day stressed out, procrastinating, and not really using your time wisely.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm going to move you back to the audience now. And if anyone else wants to speak, just raise your hand and I'll bring you back up. Um, Now I'll go to some of the questions from the chat. How was the process of getting into Amazon? And if you had to start over being a junior in college with no internship to your name, how would you go about attaining one and getting things flowing?
That is tough. I will say it was difficult to get the Amazon position. I had it was hard for me to get a job. Period. I had like spent a lot of time applying because the market was like constricting at the time.
And he was trying to follow me to Seattle.
And like yeah, it was like a whole thing. But the interview process for a fan company is as hard as it sounds. I mean, I guess depends on how much you prepare.
You had to study a lot.
I did all of the LeetCode code questions. I spent every day doing a couple LeetCode code questions. I got as best as I could. I learned how to do things as quickly as possible using AI. I used AI with LeetCode code to learn how best to solve problems. So it's very important to do those coding questions ahead of time before the interview because they will do those technical questions. They'll also do the standard behavioral questions. So you have to have you have to have revised and practiced what you're going to say when they ask for what experience do you have with this project, or explain a time when you had to face adversity and you conquered it. You have to have those prepared for an interview and rehearsed, but you also have to be flexible enough that if they ask it differently or if they ask a follow up, you know what to say. So it was definitely difficult. If I had to start over, I don't know. Sarah, hold on. I gotta think about that.
Well, you practice a lot of behavioral questions. Amazon's really weird with their leadership principles too.
Right.
That was a really big thing.
Use these leadership principles that you essentially, there's like 20 principles that you have to memorize, and they expect you to know them during the test. So definitely Google what kind of interview questions you're going to have at a specific company, especially if it's a big company like Amazon. You should know what you're going into.
And then Lee get into it because he interned at.
I didn't ask about his interview process. So.
Well, because we had a friend, Ali. He interned at Microsoft and Amazon Robotics, and then he got into Amazon.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess it's a little bit nicer if you can intern at a thing too, and that helps smooth things along. But
I don't know.
Hard.
If I were, it's hard to say. Hindsight's always 2020. I didn't think, if you asked me if I was like a junior or a sophomore, what I was going to get into, I probably would have gone into firmware engineering and more like lower level stuff. Or that's what I expected to go into. So it's hard to say I wasn't necessarily expecting to get into networking engineering, but I would have spent more time doing just your standard computer science questions, like sorting algorithms and stuff like that, because that information is so important, and so many companies are hiring computer engineers as software engineers. It's still important to know those things from a computer science perspective.
It's really hard to say from your resume specifically what drew Amazon recruiters to it. It's really hard. There's no single formula for it.
Well, I did. There's I filled a niche at Amazon that is embedded engineering. Most of the hires at AWS are high-level software engineering, so they're not writing C code. But I filled a niche that they needed, that they were struggling to fill, And so I was the right fit. And I also had the experience. I had the ability to talk through the interview because I had practiced my interview a lot.
Yeah.
And I had done the lead code questions. I had practiced. Especially because this was during a summer. I was applying during a summer, so I had a lot of time on my hands. So I just spent all the time applying,
It's true.
practicing my interview and stuff like that.
And like, for example, like for the SpaceX internship, like people always ask like how you get SpaceX. They only liked it because my Collins Aerospace internship, I just happened to work on fiber optic cables. And the team I worked with, the Space Lasers team, that's all they ever do is they route fiber optic cables, and that they wanted an engineer for that. So that just caught their eye. So it's really hard to be like, oh, there's like, here's the formula to get into these big companies. It's really just what they're looking for at the time.
Also, if you're gunning for a specific company, make sure you have your resume tuned for it. Make sure you
Yeah.
know what projects you're going to talk about that are relevant to the position. Like if I'm going to apply to this firm embedded engineering position, I'm not going to talk about my PCB design experience.
Okay, awesome. And then another question from the same person is how different and what is the difference between hardware design engineering and mechanical design engineering?
Well, I mean,
Is that like PGA?
well,
FPGAs?
hardware is such a strange word because it depends on who you're
Or
asking.
PCB?
I mean, hardware and design engineering to me means like PCBs and other or FPGAs.
Well, like Ian is a dual degree mechie in electrical engineering. He does PCBs at SpaceX.
Yeah, so typically when you say hardware design engineers, it's PCB design or potentially like circuit design. When I say circuit, I mean you're writing like VHDL code to develop a circuit chip. So it depends on you should ask follow-up questions. You should be asking these questions during interviews. Now the difference between mechanical design, I mean well, I mean, if I don't know, so what does hardware engineering mean to you? You should probably come over here.
Hardware engineering, I guess, be like, whenever you say hardware, I still think about electrical shit because, like, if you were specifying mechanical stuff, you'd be like, oh, I'm working on, I don't know, like AM components or like avionics. Like, I mean, if you're an electrical engineer and you're in the space world, for example, you'd be doing like GNC or avionics.
Story short, hardware engineering is very nuanced. You have to ask follow-up questions for that one.
If you're a mechanical engineer, it's going to say mechanical and read the job description. I guess.
Yeah, because that could mechanical design engineer could mean a variety of things depending on what you're going to do. So, I mean, that could mean you're testing, that could mean you're simulating things.
It's true. Whenever they ask an electrical question, like I have a conductivity sensor on my component, and they're like, "Oh, what does it output?" And I'm like, no clue. I have no idea what electrical things do. No clue at all. And they know that. I'm a mechie at heart, and that's it.
Someone asked to speak, so I'm going to invite them up.
Cool.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
You guys hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so my question is because earlier you said that you wanted to get into EVs and then your path ended up being something different, like kind of unpredictable, I guess. Correct, right?
Yes.
So my main goal is to do something like hardware engineering and like embedded hardware, like FPGA, something like that. Since I'm still a freshman, so I don't know much yet about it. But I'm focusing most of my personal projects on like digital logic and like computer architecture. So I was wondering if I should like build other skills and if it's like a bad decision to commit this much since I'm just starting my freshman year.
If you are, how much experience do you have with digital logic design? Seriously.
The past month or two, I've just been learning like I know about logic gates, and I recently started learning about it on like a transistor level, and one of my personal projects is already on digital logic, and my next few I was aiming to make it on digital logic.
I mean, okay, it's an important question to ask if I hate this in the future, because Digital logic, I also loved digital logic. I thought I was going to go into digital logic. Digital logic's awesome, and I love it. But I ended up, when you get into like actual chip design, you end up using different skills entirely. So it's important to ask yourself, what kind of backup do I want, and what does that mean? There is like, and there can be simple like alternatives to loving digital logic design. Like you understand a lot of digital logic, but that still applies to computer science. So I think it's still important to have a pretty strong computer science background, because you are still using a lot of those same digital logic principles. Um, does that answer your question?
Yes, but do you think that embedded hardware engineering would be a good like backup, or do you think that's too similar to
Mm,
hardware design?
Um, hold on, repeat the question.
Um, you said I should have a backup, like just in case,
Yeah.
because you said the work is different. So what about something like embedded hardware engineering? Like, do you think that would be a good backup, or is that too similar to hardware design?
It depends on how you define embedded hardware engineering. That typically means you're writing C code or assembly code. That is definitely different enough. I mean, chip
Okay,
design, you are using specific software that is, and you're writing different code. You're writing VHDL code or HDL code. So, I mean, embedded hardware engineering design is definitely different enough because you are doing an entirely different thing for a different process. You're writing assembly code. So it's very similar. It's pretty much the same principles you are learning, but it is completely different. It's a completely different industry. So you should learn both just to have the flexibility of knowing both, and knowing which one you like more. And as you develop your skills as a hardware design engineer, you will learn whether you like it or not. If you keep loving it, then keep going for it. But at some point, if you decide that this is becoming tedious, like I did, at a certain point I got into hardware engineering and I was like, this is not the thinking that I thought I was going to do to solve the problems, but hard or embedded engineering is still that niche that I'm looking for. So I just ended up spending a little bit more time on those classes, on those projects. Just shift your classes towards where you want to go, and you can always backtrack a little bit. I thought about taking operating system classes, and I never did, but it's like something that I regret is not shifting a little bit more when I wanted
to see what you were just.
Yeah, yeah.
okay, all right.
But if you
Thank
like
you for
it,
your answer.
then keep the course. If you are loving it, keep the course.
All right, okay, understood. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Good luck.
All right, and really quickly, I wanted to ask, because the call's set to be like around 30 minutes or 90 minutes. Are you guys okay with going a little over, or do you need to get off like right when that mark hits?
Yeah, we're good to stay.
We're good.
Okay. Next question is from the chat. After graduating college and moving forward, how do you look back on your college years? More specifically, if you were to be in college for up to 6 years, do you think it would feel like a nuisance once you've moved up and forward with your path? A lot of engineering students are stuck with feeling behind as a regular curriculum may take 5 to 6 years. I'm guessing the question's related to like the length of time in school and stuff.
Really nice because it RAT, like it's a 5-year program, but it includes all these times to take internships and long co-op blocks. Like there was a semester that you would take off during your 3rd year and you would just do your co-op block. And then we also got our masters during that time too. Maybe Alec, you would talk a little bit more about extending your masters a bit, but
Hold on, I'm reading the question really hard.
yeah, he's good. Yeah, so how do we look back on it, I guess? I mean, I don't obviously regret it. I think taking the time to do my master's helped kind of lead me towards what I'm interested in. To be really honest, I thought I was going to be a biomed major before I even started college, and then I switched like a day before school started to Mechie just so I could have that option to have more paths in the future.
I will say that some students hate college, and some students they are smart enough to know what they want. We have friends that they got an offer. Well, I have a friend that works at Blue Origin as a software engineer, and he is smart enough and he has enough experience in software engineering
Oh my god, yeah.
that he just got hired at Blue Origin. They said, you don't need to finish your engineering degree, just keep working for us. And he hated college, and that was perfect for him.
He quit like after third year.
So
college.
if you don't like college, if it's not for you, but you have the skills necessary to not finish your degree, and there's an option to exit while there's still a long-term solution, you should take that option. It's rare, but it's available. Like 6 years is a long time, and if you feel like you're not actually benefiting from those additional years, look for an off ramp, especially if you're confident in your ability to be an engineer.
Try to finish your degree, just because like if you like leave that company, it could be hard to get another job. But I mean, take it as you go. Like he does cybersecurity, and so he does a lot of really cool shit, and it's kind of fine that he left college early.
I will say, yeah, people that leave college and don't finish their degree, they kind of are stuck in their current careers. Because I won't say stuck, but a lot of companies will not hire somebody that does not have a degree, even if they have experience. And that's something that I've heard about SpaceX that is kind of like awful, is that they intentionally hire people telling them not to finish their degree or to get an advanced degree so that they are stuck at SpaceX. So if you are very confident in what you want to do and you know what you want to do and you're happy with that and you hate college, take the path. But yeah, I mean, if you're just going to spend a little bit more effort to finish your degree, it provides infinitely more flexibility later.
When I interned at SpaceX, no joke, there was a high school intern that they took, and that's really rare in and of itself. And then they tried to convince that intern not to go to college and just work at SpaceX after graduating high school. And that's kind of nuts to me. Like, I don't know. I think it's a really big red flag when you're telling your employees not to further their education. That kind of sucks. So that's just me. But
I mean, if you're at year 6 and you are trying to get off, then I mean, do what you can to finish it, right?
yeah.
Nobody wants to be at college accumulating debt.
Yeah.
Okay, this next question is a bit longer
Okay.
and it's a little more in depth, so I'm gonna just combine it into all three and read them all. Is there any advice or recommendations as someone who is starting late into engineering? I'm 33 and probably still have another 4 years before graduating from mechanical engineering. I have 4 kids, one being newborn, and work 50 plus hours. Is this even an attainable career? I'm definitely not the smartest in my classes, and it's hard not to compare with people in their early 20s with internships and nothing but time to study. Should I try switching into more management or smaller, like programming or mechanical work?
First of all, congrats, and it's really admirable that you're working on
It's true.
like going to college while doing all of this. I cannot imagine that. That really, congrats. Like that's crazy.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I really respect you. And it's hard, and I think it's an attainable career. I think there's other opportunities that you could take that might help to quicken the path. There's roles like program managers and things that you could do if you really wanted to start to work in engineering, but you might not have the time. Like if you can like fast pace a business degree, for example, what are they called? They're
Business net.
TPEs or something.
Yeah, I mean, you're certainly not the only person doing this. I've met people at college that do this kind of thing, so it's not you're not the only person, and people have definitely done it. So it's definitely attainable. You have to work unusually hard, but you also should work a little bit towards your experience. You obviously have experience working with people much longer than anybody out of college will. So you should potentially look for experience and for jobs that use that niche of working with people, whether that be a like technical manager. Like that is a niche that you might want to be looking for because you fill these roles that
If you don't feel confident in the engineering part as much, but you like talking to people, for example, that could be a really good role.
like people like um, other people with other kinds of experience. So
Yeah.
I would say that management, like a hybrid management engineering, is a pretty good path forward because there are technical managers that people are looking for.
Like my technical project manager, he does not have a degree in engineering. He was in the military for a bunch of years and like he became a sergeant and he led all the cadets around and he was really good at it and he's like my favorite guy and he's so good at interpersonal skills and managing people and he does great at his job and like there's methods of getting into engineering and touching engineering if you're still interested in it, but you don't want to spend the time on it to kind of fast track that.
This is also a question that I would ask like counselors, like career
Yeah.
counselors at your university or your college, because they would probably have experience with this kind of niche
And other
career
people
path.
that have done this.
Yeah, I'm sure they would have a lot of expertise in being able to answer this question.
Yeah. But
If you
good
have-
luck, and I hope you do well.
Yeah, you're certainly not the first person. People have definitely done it like before, so don't think that you can't do it.
Yeah.
Okay, next question is, are there certain states / countries that are more beneficial for certain types of engineering than others?
Like, I mean, I'll just pick out all the space specific areas, and that'll be Seattle, LA, Texas, Florida, Alabama. It's kind of where all the NASA locations are, and all the SpaceX and Blue Origin locations
I mean,
are.
yeah, you're gonna have like your tech is primarily in the East Coast or the West Coast. That's California and like Seattle a little bit. Your finance is in New York.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of engineering as a whole, the U.S. is kind of a hub. I don't really hear much about people leaving the U.S. to do engineering. There's certainly engineering
like,
overseas.
Motive. And then you're going to go to Europe. If you want to work on formula, go to Europe.
Yeah, if you want to work on like the formula stuff, that's only Europe. So I mean, the U.S. is pretty much from what I hear. Obviously, I was born in the U.S., I was raised in the U.S., I live in the U.S., I work in the U.S. So I don't have a really good perspective on that, but
if you want to do like biomed, it'd be Boston.
From what we know, like there are
and California, like because I was looking there. Once you're again. Like look at your favorite companies. Look at the companies you're interested in, and they'll list where their headquarters are and where they're located. But I think Seattle is a really big hub for all the big companies. But obviously, there's
for aerospace and software.
Obviously, there's engineering everywhere. Like Cleveland. I'm from Cleveland. Cleveland has a lot of engineering, actually, and they have a lot of really good companies in that area.
Yeah, even small towns will have engineering firms that want to hire local talent. So if you don't want to move somewhere, you should definitely look for smaller businesses that you probably haven't heard of that want to hire engineers.
Yeah.
Awesome. Next question is, how important would you say it is to be active on LinkedIn or just be there at all because this person is rarely on it? And if it matters at all, the person saying this is doing computer engineering.
That is, I mean, from my experience, LinkedIn is not typically where people in computer engineering will get jobs. I certainly developed my page. I put my resume up there. I put my experience up there. And so that's something you should certainly do because people will look at that. But I wouldn't necessarily focus on that being your primary method. Now, that's where I found some jobs. I looked for jobs on LinkedIn, but I never posted on LinkedIn. Maybe that's why I never got a job on LinkedIn, but
I never posted on it, but at least my experience is filled out. So make sure that's at least done. And then I just applied to a bunch of jobs on there. Like you can set filters and stuff, and it'll email you. I had an email set every week that'll just send me jobs, and I just make sure to apply to them. I just use it as a method to find jobs, but you don't need to post or anything.
Yeah, it's not. It's very hard, I will say, to find a job on LinkedIn, but it's certainly a primary avenue to do so. I was applying to a lot of jobs, but I heard back from very few of them.
Yeah.
One thing I'll add to that is, as someone like a student who's actively looking for internships and stuff, LinkedIn has been relatively helpful for me, not for finding jobs, although I use it for that too. but just kind of for getting a better idea of the field and what I want to do, because the same way we're having this call right now where everyone can ask questions, without this resource, it's kind of hard to do that. So what I did is I kind of narrowed down a couple different industries. Like I wanted to go into aerospace and then consumer design of like design of consumer products and stuff more in the tech field. And so I kind of was torn between the two, and I ended up reaching out to a lot of people. And that's actually the whole reason you guys are even in here, is because I reached out to Sarah a while ago and had connected with her on LinkedIn and just kind of asked a bunch of questions about what do you guys do? Like, what is your job like? What advice do you have for me? Basically, the same kind of questions that are being asked right now, except you can ask that on a larger scale to people who are experts in all these different industries. And it kind of helps you get a little glimpse into what everything is like and a better understanding of what it is that you're going into. I think it could be really helpful for that.
Some people really like LinkedIn as a social media platform, and that's fine. I kind of hate LinkedIn, so I never spend time on there. But if you like LinkedIn, then spend time there. Connect with people, message people. But if you're not doing that, don't think that it's the end of the world. And that's primarily how you would get a job, because that's not true.
Yeah. Like Diego said, it's a really great way. Like, if I was interested, I think SpaceX really signed me up for this because I was fortunate enough to be able to take a trip unnecessarily to the California location. And so I looked up a bunch of people that work at the California location so that I could visit them during this trip and see what they do. So I would message them and I'd be like, hey, can I like meet up with you when I'm in town? And they'd be like, oh, sure. I love talking about my job. And that's how I met to a bunch of teams and people at the SpaceX California location. And you can most certainly do that for anything else. And that's exactly what Diego did. And people love talking about their jobs, as you can obviously tell. So
Yeah, people in general just love talking about themselves, and if you let them, they'll basically tell you everything. A question that I had for you guys is, how do you think AI will affect your career in general in the next decade or so? Like, is there anything you see happening now, and where do you see it going?
I mean, from the perspective of somebody that works at Amazon, they are spending a lot of management is spending a lot of effort trying to get its engineers to use AI.
it's true.
So you should be using AI in college. I will say that you should absolutely know, you should be able to do stuff without AI. You should know everything that you need to know, but you should, like, AI is a tool, like the calculator is a tool. You still need to know how to do math on top of your head, but you are basically will be expected to know how to use it going into your position, because companies just want you to be as efficient as possible. And so that it means that you have to ride this line between using AI as best as you can while still being like, what's the word?
Confident.
Not confident,
Competent.
intelligent enough, essentially competent. Thank you. You have to be competent enough to know when AI is producing bullshit.
Yeah.
So like it's all about that. And that means you need to have experience with AI. You need to use it as a tool in college. So because this is what I did, so that you know when something is insufficient and when you need to start like doing more work yourself that AI can't do.
As a mechie, I liken it to FEA, finite element analysis, where if you put bullshit in, you're gonna get bullshit out. Like, you need to know what you're putting in there. You set your constraints for FEA, right? And if you do it wrong, it's just gonna, spit out something that's totally irrelevant to the work you're trying to do. So it's the same thing with AI. Like, it feeds off of what you're feeding it in, and yeah, it's given me bad MATLAB code before or whatever. It's a skill to learn to Google correctly, and it's a skill to learn to write prompts correctly. So that's something you should learn. They're trying to push AI at Blue, and like, I don't know, it's not really applicable to my job. So
Depends on the career. Like, yeah. AI is really good for most industries. AI is good for.
It's like good for writing. I guess.
It's good for writing. It's good for repeating repetitive tasks. That's something that mechanical engineers don't frequently do because they deal with software.
If I want to quick code for Excel, it'll
Yeah.
spit that out for me.
It's like doing the easy stuff quickly, and that's what you should know how to do. You still need a good baseline, and they expect you to be able to use these because they're really shoving it down my throat at Amazon. Essentially, if you're not using AI, they ask you why you're not using AI because
really
it makes, as a software engineer, it makes you faster, and so they really want people to step up because they don't want to leave anybody behind. Like AI makes you faster as a software engineer. It makes it easier to learn things. It's faster to ask AI something and it provides me with a more concrete answer than if I were to Google something. So they want you to be effective. They don't want to leave you behind. So they want you to use AI. Now you should not necessarily rely on it for an interview question. You like need to know your shit, but don't leave it behind.
And to add on to that, as a student, one thing that I really suggest using AI for is not doing your work for you, but helping you learn how to do that work. It's not always the best at teaching you, but what it is really good at is giving you basically like an outline of how you should approach learning this. And I've done multiple projects where I kind of have this idea and I don't really know where to start. And I don't want to rely on the chat GPT to tell me exactly how to do it and what to buy and everything. But I can ask it what specific topics or videos should I cover to better understand where I should go with this project and better guide my decisions with more knowledge that's more applicable to this specific setting. And I kind of mentioned it earlier, but Perplexity is really useful and kind of underrated for research purposes because like you guys are sharing your screen, you could just search something up, whatever you want to search, or one of the auto results or something on Perplexity, and it basically scrapes the entire web and will crowdsource all of the results and then generate a consensus based on what most of those results end up saying. And then through that, you'll kind of be able to very quickly understand what the general consensus answer to this question is. And that can be really useful, especially when you're doing research for, like, let's say, materials for the specific part that you need to get, or just learning anything in general. It's a lot faster than using Google, and it will provide its sources to you. And you can use those sources to look deeper into specific parts or kind of check them. So it's a lot better than ChatGPT in that it's not generating an answer on like tokens or whatever ChatGPT does where it can hallucinate, but instead it'll actually just pull from stuff that already exists and then it'll kind of filter through all the stuff that doesn't make sense.
This is
Like
actually
there,
pretty useful. And I didn't
yeah,
know about this, and I'm going to start using this at work because I
yeah,
asked ChatGPT a lot of questions, but this seems to be much more technical focused.
yeah. It's ChatGPT, I think, in my opinion, is better for like the like you can kind of tell a question that's meant to be searched on Google versus on ChatGPT, and I think this is better for the kind of stuff that you'd Google and you want to be like actual accurately with and check your sources and everything. And then you can ask follow-up
Right.
questions and everything too. Um,
Really hard to say how AI will change in the coming years because this is only like a couple years old.
mhm.
So everything that we are saying might be thrown out in 3 years.
Yeah,
So it's very important to keep up to date. You have to use AI to learn how it evolves, so how you can use it most effectively. Because companies will want you to use it most effectively, so you need to keep up to date with it.
yeah, I agree. Um, Another question I had for you guys is how different are interviews for internships from interviews for full-time roles? Like what are the big differences? Obviously, I'm sure they're harder.
Generally, it kind of depends on the industry and the company. You know,
Hmm.
if you have experience, it might be easy, it might be hard. Like if you have experience at the company, if you were an intern at the company, it might be pretty easy. But from my experience, it's much more intense because you know an internship is like a trial period for both you in the industry and for the company as you for you as an engineer. Like if they like you as an intern, they're gonna like you as a full time engineer. So they'll be much easier in hiring you as an intern than hiring you as a full time, especially like they'll love to hire interns. People love hiring interns because they know that these people are tried and true versus somebody who's never interned and they might be they could be anybody. They could be lying on their resume. So if you haven't like worked at a company before, haven't interned, then they'll be much more critical of you than like in an internship.
Yeah, so like my blue blue full-time job, I had a 3-hour long interview where it was like I had to meet with like 5 different people and do a bunch of STAR questions and technical questions. And that was pretty intense. And I had to do a whole 20-minute presentation, and they'd ask all the questions on the presentations, and so that was pretty hard. All my internship interviews were like phone calls or like maybe a Zoom call, but it made me be an hour. But yeah, the full-time jobs are definitely a lot more technical based. They're really heavy. The other job that I actually had said yes to before Blue, I had to do a whole take-home test, and that was a whole thing, and that was a whole technical write-up, I guess, that I had to do. So they're definitely more intense. But again, I don't know. We've been kind of applying to a lot of really big companies. So smaller companies, less well-known companies will hopefully be easier.
Mm-hmm.
We're pretty biased towards big companies just because that's our experience right now.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Don't discount small companies.
Yeah, don't discount small companies. I wish I did some sort of job at a small company just for the experience.
Especially if you're from a small town, you know.
Yeah.
Not many people are like applying to those jobs.
Mm-hmm. And someone in the chat asked, and before you guys answer, I'll also say something. They asked, have you guys mentored someone before? And if not, are you open to it? And to this person, I would suggest that you kind of just ask whatever questions you have in the community. And whenever anyone like these speakers right now are online, they'll answer it. But a lot of people are kind of like pretty busy to answer someone one-on-one all the time. But I think the community is a good mentorship resource where multiple people who are knowledgeable about their field can answer your questions rather than having to worry about responding to you every time you message them or anything.
I really enjoy being on Discord and answering a lot of questions, and it seems like you're a computer engineer, so you more want Alec, and Alec is never gonna do this.
Well, okay, maybe I will. I hate responding to large chats, but I like responding to individual people.
Okay.
So I would say that, sorry to cut you off,
No, you're good.
but I would say that you should just like, if you want somebody's specific opinion, just DM them. If they respond to you, I mean, I mentor people essentially at work. I'll join the Discord. You can DM me, and if I respond, that's good for you. But if I don't, then you should potentially look for another mentor. And you should do that for other people. If people are going to respond to you and they obviously they like responding to you, so you should keep asking them questions. But if they seem not to be responsive or caring, then obviously they don't want to mentor you. So pretty much just read the room, but don't be afraid to try.
You can always ask questions in the chat and then like at me or something, and I'll just bother Alec about it too.
It's true.
And I'll get it answered for you.
And one thing I'll also add on is, as someone who does get DM'd a lot and a lot of questions and stuff, definitely first ask yourself, is this a question that I can answer myself with a little bit of research? Or is this really nuanced enough to where this person, like I need this person's opinion? Because you don't want to, like I'll get a lot of questions where I'm like, this person could have searched this up and answered this in 10 seconds. And you don't want to make someone feel that way about you because it's going to make them not respond to you at all or kind of give you a very halfway answer. And so make sure you're asking actual good questions and not just like wasting this person's time if you're ever doing that. It makes a huge difference in how willing they are to help you.
This is really good advice for people for like just work and internships in general. Don't be asking your coworkers silly questions that you could Google or you're on the local wiki. Make sure you ask good questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions, but make sure you're asking good questions, because if you're asking silly questions, they're not going to want to answer you.
Yeah, Google first.
Yeah, definitely. Someone said, so So would you say internships are a great way to get on the company's radar? And I would say they're probably like the single best way to get on a company's radar because you're literally working there and they see you in their environment and stuff. I don't know if you guys want to add on
Yeah,
to that.
nothing can really beat an internship at a company because if they like you, they'll basically, it's almost guaranteed that they'll hire you if you do a good job.
If you do a good job.
Yeah,
If
I
you're
mean,
trash, then you're on their bad list.
but most of the time, if you can get an internship at a company, you are pretty much good enough. 90% of the time, you're good enough to work there full time. But
Sometimes there's some BS where it's like, oh, we don't have the head count or something.
yes,
But that's that's rare.
there might be layoffs. I have heard of that. I have
Yeah.
heard of that.
But yes, it is the single best way to get into a company usually. Yeah.
And sometimes companies will only hire interns because they have so many interns and they have so few full-time positions.
And then they asked, how would you go about finding small companies? I'm assuming for like that early on internship to target the less competitive places.
Well, I mean, you should, if you're from a small town, you should look at the businesses in your local town. You might have to ask around physical people to do that.
Ask your parents because they might know. They might have friends, family friends that would know.
Otherwise, I mean, you can. I would say it's pretty hard. You might just have to like.
Ask your friends' parents.
It's not going to be something like LinkedIn or any large platform like this. You might actually have to do a little bit of physical work. Like you have to
Look at
Google Maps. What are the local businesses in my
engineering
town?
firms.
Yeah,
Or whatever.
it's pretty much like small town kind of thing is like word of mouth essentially. So you might have to spend a little bit more work.
And then it wouldn't be in a LinkedIn. You'd have to like email them and be like, hey, here's my resume. I'd be very interested in this job for the summer. If you're available to do such a thing, or just a shadow or whatever. I did that for a high school shadowing program actually, where I wanted to shadow a biomed company. And I just cold emailed them and they were like, sure, yeah, come in for 2 weeks and you can shadow our mechanical engineer. And that's what I did. So
Yeah, and
Yeah.
to add on to this, I understand why you're asking that question because it is quite difficult to find those niche little companies that are way less competitive than others because the whole reason they're competitive or they're less competitive is because they're hard to find. Um, I keep pointing to Perplexity, but you can ask it like small companies, small engineering firms in X city or whatever, and it'll generate some decent responses for you, but once again, it's not going to be comprehensive. And I know there are websites like WellFound, which you can look for newly founded early stage startups in your area. You can even filter for a specific industry. And the thing about startups is you'll probably expect zero pay for an internship because they're low on money because they're a startup. But those are definitely good ways. You can also potentially look into like your local university's research lab or your own university's research lab if that's ever a possibility because I know some of them do summer internships and stuff. But yeah, kind of like what you guys said, it's really hard to find those, but it's worth looking into it.
You might be able to ask like your high school counselor if you're interested in working in your hometown. You might be able to ask your high school counselor what kind of companies are nearby.
yeah, that's
Because
true.
I think I have definitely interacted with a couple companies in my small town through my school. So I would say that's an avenue through my high school. So that's definitely an avenue that's worth looking into if you're interested in it.
And then kind of similar to that, another thing that I forgot I did, but what I did is I looked at everyone in my colleges or the nearby. It works for me because I live where I go to college, it's the same city, but whatever university is in your hometown, wherever you'll be spending the summer at, look at where the people there in your major did their first internships and then see if any of those were local and then reach out to those. Because most people's first internship is not at like a super huge company. And so you'll have like a little bit better chance looking at those and seeing if any of those match the criteria you're looking for. Let's see, what's the next question? As a mechanical new grad with decent experience but not extremely competitive, besides networking and applying for as many jobs as possible, what are the best things I can do in the meantime to improve and stand out?
Try to do some projects. that's kind of all you can do. It's a tough world out there.
I mean, yeah, you should just like download some yeah, I don't know, work on projects, other things.
Like if you're yeah, you said you have decent experience. It's a numbers game at that point. Make sure you have no spelling errors. Send your resume in the resume help section, and I'll double check it.
Keep working on your, if you have a personal project, keep working on it. Don't
improve
like
it. Yeah.
don't like sleep on your skills. Make sure your skills
Up to date.
are fine or like refined so that if you do get an interview, you haven't done these things since college.
Yeah, just so you don't have like old listed dates or something on there.
Hmm.
Work on learning some GD&T. Try to learn some ANSYS if you can, FEA. That's kind of all you can do.
Yeah, to
But
kind
it's
of add
hard.
on
I
to
know.
that, I had my cousin, he graduated not that long ago, maybe like 4 years ago, and he was looking for a job for like 2 years because he didn't do any internships in college. And on top of that, his university kind of had a strange engineering program where it was general for 3 years, and then in the last year, it was like it was a general engineering degree. It wasn't even mechanical or computer or anything, which means on top of no internships, he wasn't even like that specialized in anything specifically. And so he originally had quite a hard time finding jobs. And like you guys said, he just worked on projects that showcased the skill set that he had, that he kind of catered toward a specific thing, which ended up being robotics engineering for him. And through that, he was able to get a job at a really cool startup that he loves now. And so definitely just working on projects and showcasing the skills to whatever companies you're looking for.
If you haven't already, you should talk to your college career counselor, assuming you have a college career counselor. They might have some recommendations, or you might have to like they might have recommendations for how you can switch up your job search. Like if you're only looking for one specific thing, there is another way to apply. So I would consider that if you haven't already.
Mhm. Someone else asked, what are the best things to do in high school to get accepted into a college engineering program? And just for some context, this person, under their roles, has aerospace engineering, so I'm assuming they're targeting either mechanical or aerospace engineering as their program for engineering.
I mean, the number one thing you can do is if you have like shop classes at your school, you should be taking these shop classes. My high school was special because I had like some hardware of a woodworking class. We had a metal shop class. We also had a class that taught us CAD. So that was extremely important. Pretty much just
Do a bunch of AP classes.
I would say if you're in high school, the most important thing is like extracurriculars.
Yeah.
If there is an like a technical based extracurricular
Like Science Olympiad. I did Science Olympiad.
science Olympiad, there's also a couple other ones. It depends on your school, but make sure
Robotics. Any robotics class.
yes.
Yeah. The
I
I
robotics
was
is
in
big.
like Technology Student Association, which is I was doing a couple small projects there, but anything to get your hands on using with that has a mentor. That should be your like primary goal.
Yeah, because then you can write about it. But yeah, I was a captain for my Science Olympiad team in high school, and that was really good. And that was a good introduction to engineering. Not that I did much engineering, but like it was a good intro, and it's good to write about.
Don't pigeonhole yourself into aerospace engineering too hard just yet.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You have an opportunity to make that decision later. And if you pigeonhole yourself too much right now, you might be missing out on opportunities and decisions that you might want to make later.
Like I did Mechie, and that's so much better.
Yeah, mechanical engineering is essentially aerospace engineering. So just kind of focus on aeros or mechanical. We have a PLTW. Yeah, so I took a PLTW class. That's pretty much like the biggest thing that you can do. And so now that you have experience with like this PLTW class, you should be able to like start working on a couple small projects at home if you have the ability to. Like your ambition as an engineer in high school is your greatest strength. And if you can apply that ambition and then be able to write about it in a college essay, it'll take you like magnitudes further than any other
Yeah.
of your peers.
So one girl I've met from MIT, she took a year off from high school and she interned
That's
during like
crazy.
as a and that's nuts. And she did like some cool battery internship, and then she went to MIT, which makes sense. So like if you're super passionate, I guess you could like search and try to find an internship at a small company. But obviously that's outside the norm. But I just wanted to give context for
I
that, I
think
guess. If you're shooting for MIT,
right.
that's
You're
something.
you're on a pretty good path if you want to go into aerospace engineering and you've taken a PLTW class.
Then you're fine.
That's
yeah.
pretty much like at least what you should be doing over APs. Like APs are only so important. PLTW class is like
As long as
like
you
the
have a good
best you can.
GPA.
But I mean, if you have more time on your hands, do some technical extracurriculars if they're available.
And to kind of add on to that, similar to the internship example, one thing I did, which is obviously still very dependent on your school and their program. In high school, I reached out to a whole bunch of local engineering firms because I, at the time, wasn't sure if I wanted to do mechanical or civil engineering because I really didn't know the difference. And so I was able to come in and shadow this civil engineering firm after school for like literally only 2 hours a week, but it still taught me a lot about kind of the difference between that. And I was able to text these people and ask them questions. And so obviously you don't need to do this, but it is something that you can do is reaching out and seeing if there's any sort of shadowing or mentorship opportunities at firms nearby that you can do after school or whenever it makes sense if you have the time. Let's see. Okay, another question I had for you guys is what are some big and common mistakes you see students make when trying to start their careers in engineering or mistakes that you guys made yourself?
Pigeonholing yourself too much. Um, like if you're, I don't know, I wouldn't personally do an aerospace major. I wouldn't personally do a biomed major.
True.
I would do mechie.
Well,
Yeah.
biomed is. I mean,
I have not
aerospace is.
found a like even Liana, like she's
I think
so
all
smart.
of
I
those
just
you can
read,
get through mechanical engineering degree.
yeah, she's so smart, and she hasn't been able to get a biomed internship or a full time job. She's at 4 months right now,
Mhm.
and like that's impressive in and of itself. But there's just like no biomed out there. And so that's like a hard thing to do, and you just have to make the choices with your major, I guess. And I'm so sorry if there's biomed or aerospace engineers in this chat. Like I'm so sorry.
I mean, yeah, I definitely didn't think I was going to get into network engineering, but look at me now. So don't make sure you are flexible enough to apply to at least a couple industries.
Be flexible, man.
Or if you're not, make sure you pretty much have a guaranteed path in a specific direction. Like you have an internship at a specific job and they've expressed their interest in rehiring you.
I think I made the mistake of like not joining SWE, like the Society for Women's Engineers. I think that would have been really cool. I think I just
advanced your career though.
no, it would have made really interesting connections and stuff. I think one of my detriments is I didn't join many clubs or anything.
True.
I joined Theme Park Enthusiasts and I joined Engineering House, but like I didn't join ASME or anything.
I mean, yeah, college is the place to experiment because you're really never going to get such an opportunity
Yeah.
to experiment with what you want to do in life. So make sure you know you want to be an engineer. So pretty much just take random classes that you think you might be interested in and then make the decision about what you want to do later.
Yeah. Like I wish I did more machine shop type-esque stuff, or like I could have learned more about the machine shop because I'm so clueless about it. I wish I learned more about electrical stuff, but that's just black magic to me. And I have Alec to do that for me, so
Don't rely on me.
so
And even though this was my question, I also have something to add on to this for anyone in the audience. Kind of like you guys said with clubs, it's just a huge way to identify what it is that interests you and what it is that you don't really like. Because I came into college doing mechanical engineering and wanting to pursue a career in aerospace. And then I joined multiple different clubs, one being like robotics, one being the aeronautics and rocketry club. And although those weren't super accurate depictions of what the field is like, it kind of led me to understand that it wasn't exactly aerospace I liked, it was just design in general. The whole process of CAD and prototyping and testing and validating and manufacturing things was what excited me, not so much the specific industry. and that was kind of really eye-opening for me and helped me realize a lot of different things and probably changed the trajectory of what I worked on and the kind of applications that I was putting in for different internships. I wasn't only targeting aerospace. And so that stuff can be really helpful for kind of just like self-discovery of what you want to do. Okay, someone asked, as a double E major with a mostly double E background, how could I get a Mech E internship?
It's all on the experience, and it's all based on your skill set that you develop, and it's also how you market yourself, really.
I mean, if you have experience in electrical engineering, you should be utilizing that towards your advantage to get a mechanical engineering degree. There's a lot of
There's
overlap
yeah.
between electrical and mechanical engineering. So you might want to look for companies that are like bridge that gap between hardware and mechanical.
It depends on what the role is that you're applying to, right? Like, if you're an electrical engineer and you're trying to apply to a design job, they're gonna be like, well, what can you bring us? Like, do you have experience in CAD? And you're like, oh, no, I guess not. Then what are they gonna do?
You should make sure if you're trying to get into mechanical engineering, you have tried it yourself in through classes or personal
Yeah.
projects and stuff like that.
But if you mean by mechanical, like, I don't know, avionics or, I don't know, analysis, I guess, then maybe.
And this next
It,
question,
it,
oh, sorry, keep going.
no, it's just dependent on the person and the experience, yeah.
Next question is very similar. It's, if I got a degree in one field of engineering, am I able to switch and pivot, or am I stuck with that one type unless I do more years of college?
I would say, I mean, we're not really qualified enough to answer this question fully because we've only been in the field for a year. I've certainly heard people that switch their careers, but typically when that happens, it's kind of accidental or it's not necessarily intentional. Like people work in an industry, then they end up just kind of like moving over. They establish a niche somewhere else in the company that nobody knows how to do, and then they end up just moving into that field. Like there's a group of mechanical engineers, and one of them happens to start doing a little bit of electrical engineering design work, and so then he ends up just getting enough experience in electrical engineering design that he can switch industries entirely.
Like, I'm rapidly becoming the knowledgeable expert on water quality and microbe control on my team. Like, you don't want microbes all up in your water if you're an astronaut drinking that. Like, that's a niche I'm suddenly filling. So I'm kind of setting myself up to have that niche if I want to go into more life support roles.
I mean, this is kind of why you want to be the jack of all trades when you are in college, because you still have this flexibility in you to be able to switch careers. Because you can say that I did a bit of this in college at least.
Or you can be like, I don't know necessarily anything about this, but I'm willing to learn. And then I can be like, oh, look, I point to this. I point to GD&T, where no, I didn't have any classes in this, and I didn't really have much internship experience with this, but I'm willing to learn. Like, look at all these hours I put into this, and look at how I've learned so far. That's something you can do. But also, for example, like one of my coworkers, he's a civil engineer, and he works as a design engineer now because he does a lot of structure stuff. Like, there's stuff like that too. That's applicable.
Yeah, and I'm a student, so I'm not super well qualified to speak on this, but like I've seen people where within their major or like industry or a basic skill set, they've been able to transfer that skill set across different industries. Like, for example, I've seen someone who I spoke to who originally worked in the biomedical field making, I forgot what it was, but it was some sort of prosthetic design. And then they went to SpaceX for some sort of design role. And then they went toward Apple for consumer product design on the iPhones. And that design experience translated across all of those positions, even though you would think they were completely different because the industries were so, like, they just varied so much. But if you have the general skill set, I'm sure if you really tried, you could transfer it to other industries with similar roles and stuff. One more question I had, and this is the last one that I have. So if no one else has any more questions after this, then we can wrap it up. is what is one habit or mindset that really helped you succeed in your career and life in general that you want to pass on to everyone here?
That's a really good question. Especially for college and as your first introduction to school, don't be afraid to say yes to new experiences. And don't be afraid to say, no, I don't know that, but I'm willing to learn. Always be passionate. Like, if you're into engineering, you should be passionate about it to some extent, and you should be passionate about learning new things and being challenged. I didn't know anything about fuel cells, and so I was a little bit hesitant to be like, yes, I'll be a design engineer for fuel cells. Like, that's crazy. I don't know how those things work. No experience in that. But I'm willing to learn, and I think it's interesting, and I'll use that interest to fuel my work. So if there's anything that you can do as an engineer, try to be passionate about what you do. And if you're not passionate, then find a niche that does make you passionate, or like, I don't know, move out of engineering. You should enjoy your job, and I think that's really important.
Right. Another thing that I think you could say is get into the habit of asking, why do I need to know this? I mean, a lot of times you will be taught something, you'll be told something that you don't really understand the context of, or like why it's important. And understanding why something is important, why you're learning it, um, is extremely valuable because it questions, like, somebody's telling you something and you need to be able to understand, like, is this actually valuable for knowing, or like, are we thinking about this correctly? And when Sarah probably has more experience in this, but when you start to like bring up valuable points to senior engineers about like, why are we doing it this way, and they haven't thought about it, like asking that question, it makes you a more impressive engineer. So you should definitely be like asking people, why do I need to know this? Why is this important to know? And why are we doing it this way? Just like ask criticize everything essentially.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy when I'm in meetings and I bring up a point when I have literally a year of experience, and I will bring up points sometimes, and they're like, "Wow, we didn't think of that," and that's nuts to me. But that just again highlights that you should ask more questions.
I mean, there is a balance between like asking why because you don't know, and then asking why because you think that we are potentially doing it wrong. Like, you shouldn't be asking these like broad why questions in big meetings. You should potentially ask them to your senior engineers,
Yeah.
Directly. But don't be afraid to ask why, essentially.
Yeah. Read the room, but ask why.
Yeah, and one thing I kind of want to add on to that, which is a little similar to the whole ask why thing, and it's less of a mindset and more just something to be cognizant of throughout your entire life. It's something called the Dunning-Kruger effect, which is basically where you don't know what you don't know. And it's very important to be cognizant of that because it's very easy to get into something and think you know a lot about it and act like you know a lot about it. And you don't actually realize how little you know about something until you know a lot about it. And that's a very easy trap to fall into. And so assume you know very little about everything and try to, the same way you ask why, like try to dive deeper into everything you know and truly understand it. And it'll open your eyes to how much there is to truly learn and further understand, not only just in engineering, but just the world in general, everything in life. There's a lot to learn, and there's a lot that you don't even know that you don't know. I think that's it.
For
I,
your film.
do you guys have anything else you want to say or anything, or is that it?
No, I think this was pretty valuable.
Yeah. I hope it was valuable. I hope you guys had a good
Yeah, I
time.
think it was. Well, I really appreciate you
Cool.
guys for being here. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And feel free to ask more questions. Feel free to ping me in chat. Maybe Alec will join, and if not, you can always ask for questions through me. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you guys. Bye bye.
First, have a good night.
Thank you.